How's it going, everybody? This is the Stimulus Check Hub here to give you your daily stimulus check and unemployment benefits updates and the latest information. If you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. A like and a comment are always appreciated. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing this with your friends and family, because I'm sure they would also like the most up-to-date information on their stimulus checks and unemployment benefits available anywhere on YouTube, which is what I try to provide here on this channel.
Rental assistance, it will be extended up to 18 months and can include assistance for rent in arrears, no maximum, as well as prospective future rent. Utility assistance for utilities in arrears will also be extended for up to 15 months. Eligibility requirements must be adhered to. And so here are the eligibility requirements. One or more individuals within the household has qualified for unemployment benefits or experienced a reduction in household income, incurred significant cost, or experienced other financial hardship due directly or indirectly to the pandemic outbreak. One or more individuals within the household can demonstrate a risk of experiencing homelessness or home instability, and the household income is at or below 80% of the area median income. Now, the reason why we're reading this information is that a lot of people are still missing out on the stimulus available via rent assistance. Just take a look at the tracker from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Now, the first tranche still has about $10 billion still sitting there, while the second one has a whopping $17.65 billion that you could still claim. And don't forget, if you've already been approved for rental funds but continue to be behind, you can typically apply again as long as you're requesting relief for a different period of time. Translating that for everybody, you can totally double up on your rental assistance if you really need it. Now, here's a story I found on Reddit. They got their money 2 months after applying, but let's read here a little bit. I've been told that it would take up to 1 month, so the wait was nerve-wracking, but I suspect that at least some of that time was due to both my roommate and I not responding to some of the email that we were sent during the process on time. Guessing that cost us up to a week. So, for anyone currently applying for the rent assistance program lease, be sure to respond ASAP. We received exactly the amount we requested, including 2 months of late rent and the next 3 months. Once you've been approved, you can keep qualifying for 3 months at a time for up to a year or more, depends on what happens with legislation or availability of funds, end quote. Alright, so zooming out a bit, if you have a look at the NLIHC Emergency Rental Assistance website, they have this handy dashboard. 512 programs on their database, 82% of them are still accepting applications. The big number is 62.3. They accept self-attestation. That means you don't actually have to submit documentation or proof for these programs. You just have to say that you went through some pandemic-related hardship or income loss, and you're already good. Pretty cool, huh? Now, another interesting part, 34.8% of the program allow direct-to-tenant assistance. So that means that some of these programs actually give you the money outright rather than sending it to your landlord. Last part, 53.7% cover other housing expenses. Some interesting coverage here, relocation expenses, late fee, hotel motel stay. Wow, nice. Internet costs and other uncategorized housing expenses. Yeah, sounds like a pretty generous deal. And if you scroll down just a little bit further, you'll see that search bar. Just put in your state, territory, tribe, or locality, and it'll give you all the rental assistance options. You can even click those filters to get programs that allow self-attestation or direct-to-tenant assistance. Here's a sample for Alabama. It shows whether they're still accepting applications, information on where they allow self-attestation, whether they give direct-to-tenants, and other housing expenses covered like the internet. I definitely recommend you guys check it out. Now, the go-to place here is the NLIHC Emergency Rental Assistance website. So all you gotta do is go to Google, type in NLIHC ERA, should be the first or second link. Anybody here who's gotten rental assistance? I would love to hear from you guys. Tell me a little bit about your rental assistance experience in the comments below. Like what the Fulton County chair said, quote, bottom line is people still need help, even 2 years after the pandemic began. While the economy has made a strong recovery, there are still many in our community who have been left behind. I am proud of the work our team has done meeting these needs of our residents, end quote. Now, I'm pretty sure that the situation is similar in other parts of the country. That's why we keep making these videos for you guys. I just want to make sure that everyone gets all the help that they need and that everyone's always on the up and up and up to date with the latest stimulus information, which is something that a lot of other news channels overlook. You can definitely help get our message out there, guys. Just share this video with your friends and your loved ones. Just hit the share button right now and stick around because we have more in store for you guys later, including what exactly is behind this push for a 4th round of stimulus checks. Trending news today, people are curious about former President Trump's new social app, Truth Social. That's 50,000 searches all in the span of 1 day. So let's take a look and find out what all the fuss is about.
Ex-US President Donald Trump's social media app, Truth Social, began its beta rollout this week, according to sources invited to test it. About 500 people have started using an early version of the app, which has pledged to deliver an engaging and censorship-free experience. Two sources told Reuters they received an email earlier this week inviting them to test Truth Social. Users have already begun posting on the beta version, including Trump's account verified at Real Donald Trump, with a message saying, quote, "Get ready, your favorite president will see you soon." By late Wednesday, Trump's account on Truth Social had 317 followers. He had 88 million followers before Twitter banned him a year ago, along with Facebook and YouTube. Trump Media and Technology Group Chief Executive Devin Nunes said the app will launch by the end of March.
Alright, that's a sneak peek into Trump's Truth Social app. Now, according to an exclusive, the Truth Social app is set to launch in the Apple Store this week. This marks Trump's official return to social media after he was banned from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Former Republican U.S. Representative Devin Nunes is heading the venture. Now, according to him, quote, "Our goal is, I think we're going to hit it. By the end of March, we're going to be fully operational, at least within the United States." Truth Social describes itself as a big tent social media platform that, quote, "encourages an open, free, and honest global conversation without discriminating against policy ideology," end quote. Basically, they're not going to discriminate against you if you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, or any other type of denomination. The app itself is going to enter a big tent of apps that are promising to do the same. Right now, we're counting 7 apps. You've got Getter, Parler, MeWe, CloutHub, and Gab. They all present as right-wing alternatives to Twitter. Getter is a social media outlet set up by Jason Miller, who is a former Trump advisor. Now, it claims 4 million users on an average per month. Rumble's also a video platform that sets itself up as a conservative competition for YouTube. The company has said it will be providing video on the Truth social media app. MeWe and CloutHub, they're very similar to Facebook, but with the pitch that they actually promote speech without restraint. Anybody ever check out these socials already? I mean, me personally, I never even heard of them at first. Drop me a comment down below and let me know if you've heard of these. As our current President Biden just announced an extension to the national emergency that is the pandemic. The White House released President Biden's announcement letter stating, and let's just read it right now. Right? The pandemic continues to cause significant risk to the public health and safety of the nation. For this reason, the national emergency declared on March 13, 2020 and beginning March 1st, 2020 must continue in effect beyond March 1st, 2022. I am continuing the national emergency declared in Proclamation 9994 concerning the pandemic. Yup, pandemic is still here. In fact, another trending news topic is Queen Elizabeth II actually catching the virus right after Prince Charles. 500,000 searches, all in the span of 24 hours. Queen Elizabeth II has tested positive for the pandemic a little over a week after her son Prince Charles. Queen Elizabeth is 95 years old, while Prince Charles, he's just a kid at 73 years old. Strong sarcasm. Now, the Buckingham Palace confirmed the news in their statement, quote, "The Buckingham Palace confirms that the Queen has today tested positive for the pandemic. Her Majesty is experiencing mild cold symptoms, but expects to continue light duties at Windsor over the coming week. She will continue to receive medical attention and will follow all of the appropriate guidelines," end quote. Prince Charles tested positive for the virus on February the 10th. A source in the palace confirmed that Prince Charles had recently met the Queen, who was at the time not showing symptoms and being monitored by medics. So yeah, pandemic is still alive and kicking, you guys, so stay safe out there. In his announcement last week, President Biden said the deaths of more than 900,000 Americans from this pandemic emphasized the need to respond to the pandemic with the full capacity of the federal government. White House Chief Medical Advisor, he gave an update on where we are with the pandemic, plus how to look at all the guidelines and masking. Here, watch the video.
The very worst of COVID-19's Omicron surge appears to be behind us. The World Health Organization reported that infections are down globally. In the U.S., new cases are down by more than 60% over the past 2 weeks. A number of states and cities are lifting masking requirements. But the WHO and many others are still warning of letting down our guard too soon. In the last week, there were more than 70,000 deaths globally. In the U.S., more than 2,100 deaths a day. We look at where we stand with Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's the chief medical advisor to the president. I spoke with him a short time ago. Dr. Fauci, welcome back to the NewsHour. Let me begin by asking you where we are as a country with regard to COVID. There's a new modeling study out today that says something like 3/4 of the country is protected either by virtue of the vaccine or having been infected with COVID. And then you look at other statistics that say only about half of eligible Americans have been vaccinated and boosted. So if people want to understand how safe we should feel, are we overestimating that?
Well, I'm not so sure whether it's an over or underestimation, Judy. I think it's the reality that if you look at where we are right now, clearly there's a sharp decrement in the cases and in the hospitalizations, with a little bit less of a lagging or more of a lagging with deaths. But every day when you look at the data and you do weekly averages, you're seeing the cases and the hospitalizations go down. That's very good news. However, when you look at the CDC map of high and substantial activity, it's still really mostly red or orange, which means that it's right up there where a lot of activity. The good news, Judy, is that we're going in the right direction. There's no doubt about it. Now, getting to your original question, when you look at what people are referring to as the degree of immunity in the community, that means a combination of people who've been vaccinated as well as those who've been infected and recovered. The only confounding issue with that is the durability of protection. And when you have variants like Omicron, which can evade the immunity, the number of people who are so-called seropositive, which means they've either been infected or they've been vaccinated, sometimes can be misleading with regard to the vulnerability, because you could get infected, recover, be protected for a while, and then your immunity wanes. You get vaccinated, and we already know that after a while your immunity wanes and you need to get boosted.
There's several things I want to ask you about, Dr. Fauci. One is, as you know, mask mandates around the country, they seem to be dropping like flies. I mean, we're almost at a point where the vast majority of states will have dropped mask mandates, but at the same time, the CDC is saying to Americans, it's too soon to take off the mask, citing the kind of evidence you were quoting just a moment ago. Americans, frankly, are confused and wondering, how can you leave this decision up to individual Americans when the guidance they're getting is conflicting?
Well, I think what it is, Judy, is a reflection of the need, an understandable need, for people to get back to some form of normality. All the stresses and all of those things that go into people just being so tired of this. That's totally understandable. What the CDC is doing is giving you the data as it exists and the recommendation based on where we are now. The thing that's important is that many of those locations are likely, in some respects, anticipating what's going to happen.
But you can understand why people are confused at this point. I mean, the signals are different.
Yeah, of course. You know what there is, and I hope that this helps to explain it, Judy. There's a public health recommendation that is a broad recommendation. Clearly, the implementation of those is always left to the local level, what the conditions on the ground are locally, what the community can and cannot tolerate. So you have to understand, the recommendations that the CDC made are based on the science, the epidemiology, what they're observing. That doesn't mean that that's going to apply absolutely to every single different location in a different way. And that's why they always say they make the recommendation, but the ultimate decision is at the level of the local authorities.
Now, take note of that full capacity response that President Biden was talking about. That is definitely at least part of where we're coming from with the push for a fourth round of stimulus checks. And since President Biden pointed out, the country's still going through a lot of hardship. Millions of Americans remain in financial distress, and the spread of the Omicron variant is creating more economic headwinds. More than 1/4 of Americans struggled to pay their household expenses in the previous week, according to new data from a census survey that polled people during the first 2 weeks of December. And that was in December, by the way. I can only imagine how these people are doing right now. That's why advocates are urging lawmakers to approve new stimulus for the American people. One of the proposals is from the Senior Citizens League. Their position is for a one-time $1,400 stimulus check for Social Security recipients. Now, with inflation still red hot, the group said, quote, the $1,400 check would help people buy an extra week of groceries for a few months. A stimulus payment would also help them manage the higher rising costs, end quote. Now, aside from that particular petition, there are also 80 plus lawmakers on our side who are actually fighting for recurring stimulus checks. Now, according to their latest letter, and that was in March of last year, quote, "This crisis is far from over and families deserve certainty that they can put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. People should not be at the mercy of constantly shifting legislative timelines and ad hoc solutions," end quote. So what are we waiting for, Congress? Let's get those heads out of the clouds and actually get stimulus train up and running again, right? You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. The stimulus train is definitely way overdue for another stop. So let's keep watching and making sure that Congress is actually listening.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. A like and a comment are always appreciated. Also, if you wouldn't mind sharing this with your friends and family, because I'm sure they would also like the most up-to-date information on their stimulus checks and unemployment benefits available anywhere on YouTube. Have a good one.